Joseph, read the room. Let's kill him. I mean, I be fighting with my siblings, but I don't be about to kill them. I was like, what is happening in this family? Joseph was faithful in the situation that he was in, because it's not fun to be enslaved. It says Joseph was handsome and well built. She wasn't blind. Joseph again was like, no. The cards, and she's like, look, my husband brought this man into this house. Joseph is now in prison. Period, God. And the Lord was with him because everything he did succeeded. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I am Rue, back with another video. If you're new to my channel, hi. I make faith-based lifestyle and beauty content, all for the purpose of glorifying God through my life and encouraging you to do the same. So welcome, and I hope you stay a while. For the past 2 weeks, I've been doing basically mainstream, very well-known stories in the Bible that people might know even if they didn't go to church. But I want to say that this one is also going to be one of the mainstream ones that everyone knows. I have one more after this one, and then we're gonna start from the beginning. So the past two videos we did Jonah, and we also did David. We in these stories have seen the goodness and the faithfulness of God. So in this one, I want to ask you a couple questions that maybe you can answer for yourself in your journal, in your spare time, or even in the comments, or in your mind too. In your mind is fine too. And tell me, one, what is the character of God that you see here? And two, what is the main message for us as believers in God? And three, how do we see this character of God in our daily life? Okay, so let's get into the story. In a land called Canaan, there lived a man named Jacob. Interchangeably, in the last few chapters, his name was changed to Israel. So in the Bible, you can see sometimes that they kind of go with either name. He had his descendants living in Canaan. The main character that we are looking at today, his name is Joseph. And at this time, he was 17 years old, and he was in the pastures, and he worked with his half-brothers. But Joseph reported to his father some bad things that his brothers were doing. And so we can see kind of Joseph is kind of a snitch. Jacob loves Joseph. Joseph was his favorite kid, and his siblings did not like that. So Jacob got Joseph a present, and the present was a robe, a multicolored robe, and it was beautiful. And his brothers hated, and this is hated. I was like, dang, hated is a strong word. And it says his brothers hated him for it, and they couldn't say any kind words to Joseph. They were like, Then I think Jacob was in the wrong here. Why was he having some favorites? So one day Joseph had a dream, and he was so excited about the dream that he goes to his siblings and he's like, let me tell you about this dream. Listen to this dream. And he said they were all out in the field tying up bundles of grain. Suddenly his bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed down before mine. His brothers were like, okay, so you think that we're supposed to bow down to you? Are you our king? Why would we bow down to you? Like, what's going on? Why are you so special that we have to bow down to you? And because of that, they hated him so much more. So then Joseph had another dream. He went again and told his siblings, Joseph, read the room. Listen, I have another dream. And he's like, so he goes, the sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed low before me. This time he took the dream to his father as well as his brothers, and his father, like, even his father was scolded him. He's like, what kind of dream is that? Like, am I and your mother supposed to bow down to you too? But while his brothers were jealous of Joseph, his father wondered what the dream meant. Soon after, Joseph's brothers went to the pastures to watch the flocks. Jacob told Joseph basically, hey, I need you to go and tell me what your brothers are doing and tell me how they are and how the pastures are. Then come back and give me a report. So Joseph traveled to a place called Shechem, I can't say it, from their home in the valley of Hebron. When he arrived, a man from the area noticed him wandering around the countryside, and he's like, what are you doing here? Like, are you lost? What's going on? And he's like, I'm looking for my brothers. And he's like, oh, yes. They moved on from here. They said, let's go to a place called Dothan. So Joseph followed his brothers to Dothan and found them there. Yeah. So when Joseph's brothers saw him coming, craziness, they were like, let's kill him. I mean, I be fighting with my siblings, but I don't be kill him. That's crazy. And then they're like, here comes the dreamer, kind of mocking him. Ugh. And they're like, we can just tell our father that a wild animal ate him. The eldest, his name was Reuben, and Reuben was like, you can't do that. Come on now, why would you do that? Like, that's extreme. Like, why would we be doing that? So he said, let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in this empty cistern in the wilderness. So he's like, let's throw him in here and let's leave him there and he'll die in there without us having to shed any blood or anything, right? But Reuben was planning secretly to come and rescue his brother when they were not looking, right? That's what his plan was to do. And just to return Joseph back to his father. So he had a really good heart. He really did not want his brother to die, and he didn't want his siblings to be the reason why. So he was like, let me just protect everybody and do this, right? So when Joseph finally got there, they ripped the beautiful robe that he was wearing off of him. They grabbed him and threw him in there. Then they like went away and then started eating. They were just kind of chilling. And then the brothers, not Reuben obviously, but the other brothers, saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming towards them. And it was a group of Ishmaelite, descendants of Ishmael, taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead towards Egypt. One of the other brothers named Judah, he said, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's sell him into slavery. Both of them are terrible. Hey, like, why do you all think like that? When the Ishmaelites came, who were Midianite traders, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver. I know, insane. And then some time had passed and Reuben returned to get Joseph from the cistern, and he discovered that his baby bro is nowhere to be found. Like, where's my brother? He mourned and he's like, the boy's gone. Like, where's the boy? Like, what did you do with him? And then his brothers, okay, so now the boy's gone. What are we gonna do? Like, what are we gonna do? So they killed a goat, splattered all the goat's blood all over his robe, and they took the robe to Jacob and said, your son got eaten. You got torn apart to pieces. And of course, Jacob was just mourning. Yeah, he was just so sad. And I don't understand. Like, if you see your father like mourning, isn't like your first instinct to be like, oh man, it's just terrible, honestly. It's just honestly terrible. Ooh. So anyways, when they got to Egypt, Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, and Potiphar was the captain of the palace guard. So he was sold to a ranking officer. Now, I'm actually gonna skip past 38 just because it's like a side story. And I do wanna do a video, like a sub-series in this series, just talking about women in the Bible and like some of the most interesting stories about women in the Bible. So this story will be coming back up, so don't worry about that. So we're gonna skip 38 for now. Chill. If you want to read now, I really recommend you read it. It's an interesting story. Oh my gosh, when I read it the first time, I was like, what is happening in this family? Now Joseph was taken to Potiphar's house, and it says the Lord was with Joseph. So he succeeded in everything that he did as he served in the home of the Egyptian master. He was sold into slavery, but he was succeeding and everything, and people saw value in him because the Lord was with him. So like, this is a terrible situation. He's in slavery. He has been sold into slavery by his siblings. Potiphar noticed and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did, and Potiphar was pleased. And the thing about it is, if the Lord is with you, and the Lord has his hand all over what you're doing, people, even though you're at a low place, he's a slave. And the one thing I have to say is, like, Joseph was faithful in the situation that he was in, because it's not fun to be enslaved. God was pleased with him, and God was with him. So soon Joseph became a personal attendant. He was put in charge of the entire household and everything that Potiphar owned. Whew. And one thing about it is, when Potiphar put him in that position, the household was flourishing. Everything was succeeding. The fields and the crops were flourishing. Like, the household was running smoothly because Joseph was in the right place. So everything is going pretty well for Joseph, even though he's enslaved. Things are going pretty well for Joseph. And it says, it says Joseph was handsome and well built. And Potiphar's wife noticed, right? She was like, Joseph. Potiphar's wife noticed that Joseph was good looking and was well built. She wasn't blind. She started looking at Joseph real lustfully. She basically was like, come and sleep with me. Like, oh my gosh. She was like, Joseph was like, sir, ma'am, no. Like, you are my boss's wife. Why would I do that? So she just kept being like, pressuring him. Basically, she was like, you gonna have to do what I said. Like, you gonna have to go, right? H. So one day, no one else was at work, or no one else was around, and she came and she grabbed his cloak, demanding for Joseph to sleep with her. Girl. Joseph again was like, no, I'm not sinning against my Lord, and I'm not doing wrong against my boss. Like, no thank you. So Joseph like tore himself away from her, Potiphar's wife. She saw that she was holding his cloak and that he had fled. So she calls the guards and she's like, look, my husband brought this man into this house and he laughs at me. And he raped her. That's what she said. And so then her husband came and she told him the exact same thing she told the servant. She said, look, you really tried. And Potiphar was angry, of course. That's his wife. What are you doing? So Potiphar throws him in jail. Yeah, she sucks. I'm sorry. She sucks. Joseph is now in prison. So he threw Joseph where the king's prisoners were held, and that's where he remained. But the Lord was with Joseph in prison. The Lord was with Joseph in Potiphar's house, and the Lord was with Joseph in prison. I'm just gonna read what it says. It says, the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden would put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners. Period, God. Period, God. So the warden had no worries because Joseph took care of everything. And the Lord was with him because everything he did succeeded. I just want to say something real quick because it's really interesting. To me. When he was in Potiphar's house, Potiphar didn't have to worry because the Lord was with him and he had succeeded and everything ran smoothly. When he's in jail, the warden didn't have to worry because the Lord was with him and everything ran smoothly. When God is with you and you are doing his work and you're being faithful to it, you are not the only one who benefits from it. You are not the only one who benefits from you being obedient to God and him being with you. So some time had passed and two people came into the prison. The Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker. They offended the Pharaoh, so they were thrown in jail. Anyways, Joseph was in the place of the captain's guards, right? So he remained in the prison for quite some time. Like, Joseph was in prison for a long time. But while he was in prison, the Pharaoh's cupbearer and the baker both had dreams, right? And Joseph heard them because they woke up and they're really troubled. And Joseph was like, what's going on with y'all? They're like, we both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean. And Joseph was like, interpreting dreams is God's business. Tell me the dreams and I'll tell you what they mean. I love how he said it's God's business. It's not like something I do. It's God's business. Tell me the dreams and God will tell me what is going on with y'all, right? The chief cupbearer told Joseph his dreams first. He said, in my dream, I saw a grapevine in the front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cups. Then I placed the cups in Pharaoh's hand. That's the dream. And Joseph said that in this dream, the 3 branches represent 3 days. And in 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you back to the position that you were at. Oh, I'm going to read. So he said, and please remember me and do me a favor. When things go well for you, mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. Like, when the chief baker saw that Joseph given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, I had a dream too. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastries stacked on top of my head. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them from the basket on my head. Joseph said, this is what your dream means. Basically, 3 basket represents 3 days. And Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. Or in the ESV, I think it says they hung him. Then the birds will come and peck away at your flesh. Yeah, dang. So Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all the officials and the staff. He summoned the chief cupbearer and the chief baker to join in the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer, as the Lord has said to Joseph to tell them. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot about Joseph. So